starting the program now. Thank you for taking out time today evening to join us for this program. And it's a nice winter evening, though a little early for to start a program on a weekend, but I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to take away and learn many things from our guest speaker today, architect Sumit Maity, who has flown from New Delhi despite the I hope now the Indigo fiasco is over. And it's a very relevant topic that today evening is going to talk about on urban housing, which is a burning issue not only for the architects but also for various other stakeholders in the country. So we will definitely hear from architect Maity on that. But before that, it's customary that I introduce our guest speaker. So we'll take a while to introduce architect Maity, who has completed his BArch from Calcutta University in 1991, graduating as first class first. He later pursued a master's degree in urban and regional planning, MSc from Edinburgh, UK. After graduation, he moved to Delhi and joined the internationally acclaimed architectural firm, Raj Agrawal Associates, where he had also interned during his student years. Over 5 years, he gained invaluable experience working on prestigious projects such as the World Bank Regional Office, British High Commission, Parliament Library, and the Israeli Center in Lisbon, among others. Following this, he worked with another legendary firm, the Stein, Doshi, Bhalla, for 3 years, where he contributed to several large-scale institutional and industrial projects. In 1999, he co-founded Sumit Maity Architects with architect Shalini Maity. Since its inception, he has served as the principal architect and proprietor of the practice. The firm quickly gained national recognition by winning their first national open architectural competition in 1999 itself for a mega housing project by the Delhi Development Authority. Within few years, they secured another major win in a 2-stage international competition open to SAARC countries for the Bharat Bandhana Prangan, a landmark project spread over 400 acres in New Delhi. Architect Sumit Maity briefly served as a visiting faculty at the Sushant School of Art and Architecture and has delivered invited talks at various prestigious institutions and forums, including Indian Town Planners Institute, TVP School of Heritage Studies, New Delhi, Indian Institute of Architects Convention in Surajkund, BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore, NWPBC Convention, JNTU, Hyderabad, and many more. He has also served as an eminent jury member at key industry platforms such as the IIA-WBCHAPTER exhibitions and IDAC. These are just a few, accolades and achievements and projects to talk about architect Maity. I'm sure we are eagerly waiting to hear more about his projects. It is time now, sir. We would like to felicitate you with a small token of our love. I would request now architect Prabhat Ranjan Das to kindly felicitate architect Maity. You can come on the stage so we can take a nice picture. I would request architect Apeksha to please help us with this felicitation. Ashwin sir. So architect P.R. Das felicitating architect Sumit Maity, our today's speaker for the evening. Thank you so much, Architect Dash, Architect Maity. We will just sit for a few minutes before we again call you back. Now it is time to also felicitate our sponsor, without whom we would not have been able to organize this program. So I would call upon Mr. Shibpur, the AGM Larger Business, State Solutions and Private Limited. I would again request Architect Das if you could felicitate Mr. Paul Patra. Sorry. You have similar, we have. Thank you for sponsoring our event. Thank you so much. Now I would request our very dynamic chairman, IIA-West Bengal chapter, to please commence the program with your deliberation.
Good evening to all my architect colleagues and a warm welcome to this evening's Architects Meet. It's a pleasure to see so many familiar faces, and I'm especially delighted to welcome our new members in our group. We have gathered here today to share the works of our fellow architect Sumit Maity, and gather some valuable wisdom from his professional practice. Architect Sumit Maity needs no formal introduction to members of our West Bengal chapter, being a familiar face and well-known personality in our architectural community, having graduated from BE College, currently IIEST. Many of his contemporary architects are present at our gathering today, and we would like to extend our warmest welcome to one and all. This meeting provides a unique opportunity for us to connect, collaborate, and learn from one another. Whether you are a seasoned professional with years of experience or just starting out your architectural journey, insights that we can gather from the experience of our fellow architects are highly valued. I believe that by sharing our knowledge, expertise, and perspectives, we can collectively elevate the field of architecture and create spaces that are not only functional and aesthetically pleasing, but are also contribution for a better world. I encourage everyone to actively participate in our discussions, ask questions, and share your ideas to make our evening an interactive and enlightening one for all the participants. Let's make this meeting productive, engaging, and inspiring. Before we turn our attention towards the focus of our presentation this evening, I would like to take this opportunity to mourn the loss of our few fellow architects whom we have lost in recent times. In order, we have Architect Satyabrata Roy, Architect Debaprasad Maitro, Architect Ratna Roy, Architect Bimal Chandra Datta, Architect Kunal Kumar Bishwas, Architect Somnath Sannal, Architect Mridula Banerjee, Architect Devananda Chatterjee, Architect Sunil Kumar Ghosh, Architect Krishna Pada Bhattacharya, Architect Santosh Kumar Ghosh, Architect Mukul Mitra, Architect Rama Sena. I would request you all to rise together and observe a minute of silence in their remembrance. Okay, now you. May all the departed soul rest in peace as they continue their journeys into the unknown realms, and wish them all well. Thank you for being here in this evening as we welcome our guest, architect Sumit Maity, to discuss his projects and lessons learned through his journey as a professional architect. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's an honor, and I'm really privileged to be called over here for this particular session. And the last one, I believe, I had done in some IIA meet about 20 odd years back. And here I can see many familiar faces, many of my batchmates, seniors, juniors. What? No, you're saying something. Which one?
It's visible. I think you can start. It's visible.
Okay. But for the last 25 years, I have been in Delhi in this practice, and we have been working on several types of projects, institutional, industrial, socio-cultural, and all. But for the last decade or more, we have been heavily engaged in some big-scale, this housing. So I would be actually using this particular situation as an opportunity to showcase a little bit of our projects also in the context of today's topic, and probably we'll see that how really this particular changes, the kind of changes what actually we've been seeing in the urban housing scenario. I'll probably put that way that this would be like this particular change from a perspective of Delhi, if I say so. So next. So today's topic is the changing scenario of the urban housing. So before getting into the thing, first let us just see the urban and this housing, these two parts. What exactly are these? So that we just narrow down, our talks and the things in a manner. Next. Now, when we talk about the urban housing, first, if we say the urban area, it's a little awkward. Actually, I can't really see the screen. I'm afraid I have to still use possibly this particular TG12 report. This was done in 2012. This is that report actually done for this urban housing, the short fall of the urban housing. If you see that all the states where we have just this data, and about 18.68 million houses, the shortfall was like that. And I do not know really 2022 what is this home for everybody. I don't know how much really we can achieve, but I believe the shortfall is still there. Now, why the shortfall and what about this urbanization? So the graph on the other side actually is showing the kind of the urban population, how that will be increased and the reason for that. You will see the top where we have got steady growth, which is the rural to urban migration. And the last this column is showing a bit of orange, which is the extension of this town or the urban areas. In other words, that the amenities in the peri-urban area or what would be let's say the urban rural areas, they have been really improved so that now they can be termed as the urban area. Now, overall, the urban population is increasing. So the moment it happens, so then definitely the land is actually a limited resource, we all know. So that is going to actually really put the impact on it. Now, the overall this 18.68 million or whatever, 95% of this particular figure actually that goes for the LIG and AWS category. That is basically urban poor. And in fact, 54% out of that are actually for the EWS section. So what I mean to say that when I talk about the urban housing in a real sense, we need to actually address this particular issue. Because otherwise, let's say the high-end luxury segment housing and all, which they can be really aspirational, but they don't really give you the right kind of picture. One small thing here, probably not exactly straight away. Maybe the next slide would be a better choice. The 10% of the population all over India, not only Delhi, Calcutta, 10% of the population they had the wealth of 60%. So that is something which governs the urban housing market economy. Because this particular segment actually is very lucrative for the private builders to get onto. But the 95% this particular requirement, what it is, they are never addressed by the private developers. So government needs to have a little more engagement with this particular sector. Next. Alright, so now when we talk about the housing, so this is let's put a complete scenario. So it is not exactly something what is much bigger than what actually what we see. It's not only the building blocks and all. So it is so that the decision makers are actually at different levels. There are various domains actually in the housing, and this I'm addressing a very knowledgeable audience, so everybody wants to know that. So the planning situation, when they talk about the data and the projections, the requirements, accordingly we pick up this thing like 95% of this requirement and all, we are simply saying we have data and we have planning data. Then the next possible situation is spatial planning. I'm not really using that land use plan anymore because those things are getting little, awkward. Now, so where actually you will be requiring the land to be marked, the use to be defined, and accordingly, over here you will be having the kind of the area and the ground coverage, density, and other things. So those are the policy decisions which are made. Then comes another domain comes for the development methodology and the strategy. When you have the financing, whether you are going to go for the straightaway government or the establishment back project or with PPP and all sort of things. And possibly out of that, there will be the intervention of the architects. So that, and then obviously with that there will be several other issues that what kind of project it is, we need a kind of technology driven solutions, the faster delivery and all this stuff. Construction, another issue. Dispersal would be another huge domain, basically. The kind of the way actually you need to put these things in a way only the ownership, or it is going to be the rental housing. The rental housing is hardly here in India. And the other ways assisted this housing ownership and all this stuff. Now, I have put the other two basically in red over here, that one is the use, what is basically after the project is delivered or disbursed. Then you have this situation when you see the users actually appropriating the particular spaces. And in turn, there is another thing called the housing market, which actually involves, which is a continuous, somehow, I would say, in a big part in the economy. So these two are things basically which we need to see. We need to figure out whether the kind of policies what were made actually earlier they were correct, where they went wrong, where we can correct ourselves, and then we continuously change those policies. So this is the entire, if I say so, somebody can, and each of this domain actually can be like a big discussion topic. So maybe we now just narrow down to that architectural this intersection with that particular area. So another thing is that since we talked about this particular low income group housing, so probably over there, the government would be having, should be having something to create really a proper defined housing ladder, which is somehow missing possibly at various states. Because somewhere we talk about this, this social level, if you the social applications, if you say so. So there are three, typically we say three pillars of the social applications of the government. Typically you have the education, health, and some pension scheme. Housing can be the fourth pillar in that way. But yes, it has got its own challenges. Unlike the other these three pillars, housing requires initial very high financial involvement. So that is something which makes it a little more difficult, and that is why that number three, development strategy methodology comes into play. Basically, how to tackle that. Okay, next. So if we come down to the architectural part and basically the layouts and all, so then let's see that how actually it started with. Let's say if we talk about the earlier days in 1670s, that time. So what about this housing that time we saw? Now that time mostly we saw those things which are like the typical townships. The image and the thing what over there basically the government or the PSUs, they were making their own townships. So like technically speaking, they call the employers housing. So and they used to be typically like a grid island pattern in your roads. You had the isolated block pavilions, typical walk-up apartments, but you had the access or let's say orientation. Those things were the advantages that way somebody can say. All the buildings used to be right orientation. They used to have the access right up to the doorstep, and they had a complete, the open spaces and all. But somewhere people thought that probably, and it was somehow following the international style. But you see everywhere in other countries, within the Bauhaus pattern sort of thing, typical in the international style. So then, what was missing? So does it mean that it had somehow lacked some kind of inspiration or something, or the Indianness? Next. So then, okay, I could show many, but just one or two, three, four images here only to just come out with that. So then in the late 70s, 80s, then we started seeing some other kind of layouts which were not exactly like typical this township pattern. So you all know these images; they are very well-known images. So typically, when we started seeing the cluster housing, so where actually we see that the community spaces are kind of sharing spaces, how that thing happens. The hierarchy of the open spaces, like the first, like between an enclosed open space, then you go for the semi-enclosed, and then eventually you go for the larger community gathering space and other stuff, like what Charles Correa did in the development. But okay, I won't say that this is really qualified for today's discussion because it was not that big a project that way. I mean, numbers probably we're looking at the projects. We should look at the projects which are possibly around 1,000 dwelling units. Then only it will make an impact. And of course, the other one we can talk about, that is the Asian village. So we will see that the kind of the pedestrianization, the way the clusters are there. So we have the complete proper, there is a order in the open spaces, increased open spaces and all. And like the other like there are certain other small houses, again same thing. It may not be really that big a project, but it was giving some kind of direction to us that the housing should be something which is actually which should create a community feeling. And then we learned to actually figure out the use of the open spaces, because our climate is quite friendly, unlike the West. So we could use that open space actually for various uses, and not only at the ground level, even the terraces also could be used that way. There are certain other antitheses also to that, but we'll come to that later. So this is the thing. So, but we must understand this. When we're talking about this 80s and all that time, still the norms were like this. That the AFR was still going, hovering between 75 to 125 sort of. The density was barely 50 odd dwelling units per acre. So that kind of thing. But you have seen that graph. The population was increasing, the density was increasing, so when we were getting that tremendous pressure on the land chunk. So it was not sustainable that way possibly. So we could see really that how actually could be evolved. So that way. Next. So this is the thing basically. So during that time it was 99. So this is the competition that we won. This was actually for Vasankunj. It was a 25 hectare site. So this was divided into two parts, and the total it was aiming for 3,000 dwelling units. So what we had done, it was basically we had done several clusters, and the clusters were done in a manner so that there should be it shouldn't be too big or too small to have the community feeling. Maybe we were lucky enough to actually figure out the particular quantum. Somebody in some other lecture, somebody asked me when I mentioned that out of 120 entries, we were the only ones who could give 3 big, large green spaces in this particular project. 2 for the cluster, the housing, and 1 for the school separately, and all in the proper orientation. So somebody asked me, why so? Why do you think you had 21? I said I was simply lucky to probably figure out the cluster's dimension, the distributed size. So, and we tried to do a mixing. One part was the HIG, then the other cluster was LIG and LIG, and another was the LIG and AWS. So none of the clusters except for the HIG were actually similar, they were mixed. HIG was similar only because that time DDA was having this, they had a different kind of strategy to do this HIG. They used to make like a SF, a self-forensic scheme. So that's why it was separated. Otherwise, we were always intending to mixing the houses. So anyway, but this is eventually, based upon this, we did the other project next. So based upon that, we actually did this particular project. This is a constructed project on the same basis because we were asked to demonstrate the same clusters that were done in the competition. So here also you'll find that this particular site, this is 8.1 hectare, if I remember rightly, total 215 units, and we have 3 BHK, 2 BHK, and 1 BHK. So over there, those 2 clusters, they're the HIG 3-bedroom clusters. And these 4, they are the mixing of 2 BHK and 1 BHK dwelling units. Now you see this, what we have done over here. Now this particular area, this is quite close to airport. So I think the AFR was about 150, but we could not achieve that because of the height restriction. So the thing what we tried to do over here, that the clusters were made, but we cleverly we were just mixing those 8 floors and 4 floors together so that we have a balance, number 1. Number 2, on the 4th floor area, on the lower height, you have a completely separate, like a deck, where you can actually continue the entire cluster is tied up. Otherwise, another thing, okay, I think next. Okay, this is a better choice to show over here. Now, this is the site plan. So we'll just see the flow of the open spaces and the pedestrianization and the vehicular. Just click. So this is the vehicular and here's the pedestrian inner core and the blue areas what you're seeing. All the clusters actually they have, I mean if you so that's how basically the entire thing from the vehicular road, people can actually come inside the cluster with the cluster entrance court, and then you have the cluster court, and then you are coming in the inside right in the middle at the boulevard, which is the pedestrian boulevard, and that actually goes for the entire site. The yellow one, they were the internal those pathways. Now, the system is very simple. The entire vehicular wing actually goes on the periphery. We have some cul-de-sacs. And the entire this pedestrian this circulation, this entire network actually is tied up with the city straight away to the bus stop, if you say so. If you see this entire goes into the main road, right up to the city, transport system. Next. These are some views actually. So you'll see the way that the 4 floors and the 8 floors they are combined together. Next. You can probably see a little bit of this inside the courtyard. You'll see this the gateway sort of thing, basically, which are the interlocking courtyards and all. Now, over here, we are actually still, as I already told you, that we could not achieve the complete FAR, but yes, there was the excuse was basically that with the vicinity of the airport, the height was restricted up to only 8 floors. But somehow the interlocking courtyards, the open spaces, the community space and other things, we tried to create in the similar inspiration, if I say so, that what we had learned before. Next. But what about, but these are the 3 BHK, 2 BHK and all, but what about the 95% urban for that thing? So did we come up with a very, we thought that we have to give a very fast delivery system, we have to go for this EWS category. So they first came up with a proposal for making 20,000 houses. And that is spread all over Delhi at 9 pockets. And a prefab system was suggested by them that it must be on the prefab structure. Next. So the challenge here actually was this: you have to create one particular prototype which got to fit 9 pockets. The FAR was 200. Video engineers, they simply calculated this way that 5 floors would be there because G plus 4 without lift for the AWS. So 40% ground coverage, 5 floors, 200% done. So then it took time for me to explain to them that 40% ground cover is not achievable in any way. So then they figured out this and they eventually accepted the proposal, but we are still 20% down. But the thing is that it was a walk-up apartment, so that's why it had to be between this thing. That is number one. Number two, there were several other issues like the prefab, because there were certain parameters for the cranes and crane movements, the material, eventually installation and other stuff. Because eventually over here average our ground coverage came out up to 33% or so. So quite densely done up. So those things had to be seen. So okay, next. So what we actually played with. Yeah. Back. Yeah.
This room.
Yeah.
For all the flats in the village has no ventilation at all, except that small balcony that we
Yeah.
There's a window that's very small, just after the shaft.
Okay.
This one, no, it was straight. Left. Above. Okay. Now, what is the ventilation of the living room? Here. How about that?
Yeah.
This is not the outside.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in the month of time, we can save the other questions. I'm sure our main audience will have many questions, so we can save all the questions and we will take it up later. Otherwise, it will unnecessarily get it.
We'll definitely discuss that particular issue. Okay. So we come back to this particular, this is, we have done 9 pockets. So this is one basically I'm showing just for like a reference sort of thing. In fact, this was the largest one. This is about almost 10 hectare site that we were looking at. This particular site was having about 4,200 units. Now you see the thing, now you will hear what has happened. The kind of building blocks over here, that was basically a complete one particular module, and then it's like a industrial production sort of thing. So then where from, how you can actually, get those community feelings and all. So what we try to do, the geometry and the proportions, they are a little different here. So we started creating actually a kind of green boulevard, and the blue ones, what you are actually seeing, these blue areas, they're at the ground level, you have the grassroots commercial activities, sort of like those typical convenience shops and all. So they are placed actually around this particular boulevard.
If you see over here, this is 2 entries. So from here actually you come, so this is the, you say that this is the kind of connection. This is it. And then this is the other connection, which is coming to the community eventually to the central green area.
Sorry? Which one? The blue ones. Yeah, the blue ones are actually having the commercial activity at the ground level. So that is then this particular boulevard becomes a little animated. Otherwise, it will be like a, so. So that's how we did this, and generally speaking, of all the sites, so we tried to, another thing we must point out, you see that time the norms over here, the density, the two things we talk about always, the FA and the density. For the EWS category, the density was 600 building units per hectare. So of course we could not achieve it. We were somewhere 500, 520 odd per hectare. And FAR also, as I told you already, so we eventually did something between 160 to 165 up to that one we could achieve, because this particular model otherwise couldn't be sustainable. Next. So then we came with another situation where now they include the LIG, which is basically one grade above the EWS category. And this was for 10 pockets actually. I mean, in fact, this is our site plans are put on the Google map basically. So this is one particular area, this is the Manila, this is sectors G7, G8. So you will see that about 6 pockets were here. And over there also, this is G2, G6. So the same thing, they wanted to have this thing on the prefab system. Now, the problem was here that the 200, because the height restriction was worked up, so we had to go for 200 over here. Now this was a little tricky.
because for the prefab system, we had to go for the similar module for all. At the same time, all the sites, they are of different size, different geometry, so how to really get into that particular situation for actually always getting that 200 FAR. So I'll just explain that thing, but before we go for that, now let's see that, basically you'll see over here, all the pockets. Actually, in fact, this is the site what you saw before. This is the EWS site basically. Now, otherwise, all the energy EWS pockets, you will see that the way the clusters are formed. What we had done, the energy blocks were of 13 floors, and EWS part, we went with the similar situation that it has to be G+5 without any lift. So they remained in the similar kind of form. So now you see the way we try to do that. We try to create basically the clusters which are open and eventually coming to. These are the connected there and there. They again same thing, connecting to the central one. The peripheral vehicular ring and then the cul-de-sac parking. So it's a completely pedestrianized city core. Next. Okay, so this is one this pocket you can think about. This is a pocket about 11.5 hectare. I believe the total units are almost around 4,000 odd also. So you'll see that in details basically the way the blocking and the kind of open spaces are actually created in between. Okay, this is the typical LIG block. So where we have the lift somewhere, and then of course the staircases are marked that way. Now this is the way we had done next. This is actually the thing that we had done. We had created one module L10, which means that this particular thing would be with 10 units. Then L8, that is 8 units, with a staircase, without a staircase. So none of this block actually is qualified to be a building by itself. They lack something somewhere, either no lift or no staircase, something like that. But when they are combined, if you combine three blocks, 2 L10 and 1 L8, then you get a complete building. You would add 4 blocks, then you get another system, 5 blocks, another system, 6 blocks, another system. So that's how all these things, so they are all different that way in all the sites basically that you have seen. And we use that way so that eventually we come to that if we are 200, we have to achieve that much. This particular project we are asking about 34,000 places that we have done over here in these 10 pockets. Next. So this is that's a view actually, if you see, this is actually this sector 11 of this G7, G8 and this 6, sector 5, sector 6, these two have been seen. This is the street view and that's the courtyard side view of the LIG block. Next. So that's the elevation of this pocket 11. So the same similar thing that you are seeing, that street view and this is the same entrance. So that way. Next. Okay, back. So this particular over here, what we have done now we come back to the other same total issues, FA and density. So FA we achieved everywhere 200 and 99 or whatever. Density, the LIG that time did have the norms of 500 dB units per hectare, and no, we could not achieve it. I believe that we were something like 450 or 460 odd. That density was achieved. Now I'll show one project, but which may not be as big as these ones. It's a single pocket, but I want to show something else over there actually. So that is why I just included this. Next. Alright, so this is a housing pocket. This is called EVR Heights. This is a Loknayakpuram. This is a small. Thanks. Thank you. So this is about 3.4 hectare site, and it's the total number of units are about 870 odd. The 2 BHK condominium and some EWS block, because in Delhi we got to have 15% EWS component anyway. I'll tell you what actually is it. So basically over here, these are the 2 BHK blocks, which are of 13 floors, and this one block, this is the EWS block over here. So we have this central courtyard over here, and we are seeing a green patch over here as well. Next. So actually this particular thing is quite interesting in that way. This is something new, I mean new in the sense probably unique. What will happen, you see this particular plot over here, and there is one housing here existing already before we did this one. So also this, and there is a housing over there also. So this particular stretch was supposed to be actually a green space at the grid level. So that this particular, there was a pedestrian connection. Though there was no park or anything, but in the master plan they had. So what we have done, we put this particular land chunk within this site, use this affair, but we allowed this particular green actually at the elevated level, so that the people from here, they can go freely from here to the other side, yet they are not trespassing really this particular side. So if you see this, so that's what we have done over here. So it's a big steps, the ramps also, and then you have this complete raised garden over here, and then you go on the other side. So this is something basically, I won't say this is really completely qualified, this privately owned and public space, not exactly that, but when we are talking about consolidating the green spaces everywhere, and that actually in the urban level also we try to do that, so that they are connected. So we probably can think of this also, that in the housing or even this kind of things can happen. So that both the parties, you use the affair, so you get the affair, but you create, you have this openness, or you have these connections throughout. If not the entire city, at least in this entire sector or something, it can happen that way. But some which managing, this is obviously done up, this is constructed already. Next. Next. Alright, so this gets to another part. This is something, this is actually now this is not exactly the low income group, but this is the energy and HAG category housing. So here now we are looking at basically this particular sector where there are 8 pockets, and these were actually for the 3 BHK, 2 BHK, and of course the EWS component over there. And so what happened that now this is something, the green spaces in all this stuff, they are there, but the system is little different. Over here we have gone for a little higher building height. It has gone up to around 19 floors. We all got 2 double basements. Next. So this is the entire view. I don't know how you are seeing this. This is actually, this is the pocket 14, this is 13, 11, 9, 4, 3, over there 6 and 5. So these are 8 pockets over here. So from here to here is about 1.6 kilometers, 1.8 kilometers sort of thing. So next. So this is a kind of basically like I would say like like some image saying that how to really have something which is very easily perceivable form, and knowing that is a public housing to roll out just completed, so it looks like that. Definitely after 10 years it will show completely a different image. So I was thinking that okay, if tomorrow people start covering their balconies into their rooms, then how they will look. So then, somehow I thought that possibly this circle is something. If tomorrow someone covers this and make a glazing, even then circle will be still circle. But on a rectangle or a square, if you put the window, a wide rectangle and a wide window rectangle, these two are very, very different in terms of illustration. But circle somehow it still reads. So I thought that probably it was a easy, I would say, clever choice to go for a circle. We debated really that what kind of forms we should make this kind of. Having said that, the reason is basically this, that we are using the similar kind of modules and in different orientation. So we try to do something so that at least some kind of shading we must have when we're having east to west orientation. So that is the idea. So otherwise you will see that this is actually an HAG. You can't really say that this is but the quantum is quite big. I think it's around 13,500 houses we have done in these 8 pockets. And total area, 23 lakh square meter of built up area. So that is quite phenomenal. So I believe it should be qualified for addressing the urban housing needs. Next. Sorry?
Is it for the government or private?
Government. Yeah. So this is the largest pocket out of this 8. This is pocket 11. This is actually a 15-hectare site. And this particular plot itself is having a built-up area of, I think, 7.5 million square feet. So this is what you are seeing. Basically, the entirely was centrally we have this green field. We are also seeing the same thing. And the blocks were, now this is something which is I would say, let's not get into too much. So I would say possibly this is something which is a mix of our courtyard, the community spaces, plus somewhere the national style, but it is little different from what probably we saw in Basant. It's more like the build form, the building blocks are standing and trying to define an open space, which is basically we're trying to enclose. Whereas the Basant was basically much more organic, I would say, if I say so. So, but no, why so? Possibly the one basic reason is that we are going, above the ground. Now it is no longer really at the walk-up apartment sort of situation. So then the moment that particular system changes, so then everything changes. With this particular pocket of it is having a double basement here also. So you can see a little bit of this, some voids here so that light goes to the basement also. Next. This is the pocket 13, I guess. Yeah. So like all the green spaces are here. So you have the community halls, like the sitting and all that stuff. In fact, this is the guardhouse. This also was created in a similar kind of audience and similar kind of fenestration and the ceiling void as well. Next. Alright, so what we have seen basically is that airfare has gone really up. So now the changes basically has happened because the density is going up, the airfare is going up, and the land quantum actually hasn't really changed that much. So, and specifically another issue comes specifically over here, when we go for the poultry outside, then we have cheap land and we tend to throw the urban poor over there, which is absolutely the wrong situation, but unfortunately it's not in India, it happens everywhere. All over the world, everywhere people are doing the same thing. When we are throwing the urban poor on the periphery and they are losing their livelihood, they simply abandon their living houses, they come back to the same slums. Now, in the redevelopment area, so what I showed you actually of this 200 acre thing, but otherwise, if you go to the redevelopment part, so then it goes up to 300 to 400, it's even higher. We had done one redevelopment project also, but I believe it is not included here. That was also about 5,000 houses. Okay. So one is this, basically, what is the essential questions that we now ask, basically, it's not only the market force or the requirements of client, then how about our own needs? Have we changed any over the 25 years? Now, when people used to advocate for the outside this, this terraces and the balconies and the courtyards and other stuff, are we really interested in that anymore, or we are completely now depending on the air-conditioned indoors? What is the situation like? So, are we going to be too sentimental about it? Unnecessarily, we are trying to romanticize about the courtyards and the community spaces? Do we not need that? That's a question basically for us to ponder. And obviously, we have figured out the other some new thing, let's say specifically after COVID and all, that like we need to have that work from home sort of situations. And even one big thing that is one including only the dwelling unit, but as a community, there is another very big thing that we could possibly need some spaces which can be used for some multi-purpose roles. Let's say even running a temporary school sort of thing. I believe definitely many of you possibly know about this towards the urban Malaysia, which was done by this UK government, and Sir Richard Rogers was the mentor, I believe the main person over there. So over there, what Rogers was actually advocating that the most of the buildings should be done in a manner so that it can be appropriated anyway. I believe London or the surveyors, they have seen the maximum this densification, so they understand possibly the significance of that. We still have many, so we will understand it later possibly. So let's face the fact, after COVID, when the everything is closed and all, I mean, I remember one of our houses at that time, they were not sold that time. So what many housing pockets over there, they actually had put those people who were the COVID infected and all. So they became those sanctuaries. So okay, we had those housings. But how about the normal scenario? So you'll be needing something, at least if not every housing compound, but probably at a sector level or something, we should plan those things. So these are some new requirements possibly you should think of that way. And that's what it is. We have seen basically the evolution of these open spaces also, even in our projects as well. Now, in the policy situations, possibly, I know that I could not really touch these points. I believe that possibly after doing everything, because let's say we as architects, we got the brief from that is the thing that the entire mechanism that we showed in the beginning. So we come very late when already those parts of decisions were made already. That if we need to pay for 32,000 houses or whatever it is, all energy. I strongly believe that it has to have some kind of mixing of typology, mixing of tenure. Tenure means whether it is a ownership, whether it is a rental, or whether it is a assisted ownership, means partly rental, partly owned. So those kind of things got to be here in the housing system. We always talk about the ownership person. That is precisely the problem where actually our low-income group, even if they are given these houses, they come out. Of course, one is the location, they are thrown outside. Another option, and I think is just simply put that to one rent or something and you come back to the same slum. So we need to have some kind of systems where they actually stay put, number one. Then number two, that if you have the open thing, if you have a same typology, then there is a possibility. I believe, in the long run, I hope it won't, but probably in the way it is, it should go eventually. It comes down to a completely downward spiral, basically, because there is no housing transaction will happen. The housing market, if you want to grow, then you need to have mixing, both in the typology and tenure. So now that I'm trying to this thing to video officials also, that you must try to add all this stuff. And like the dormitories, we need to have dormitories. These things like China have. They have dormitories. They have even in the social housing level. They have a very interesting thing that they have talented young professionals. What they actually with them, because they do not need large spaces, so they can have in small spaces. But the moment they grow in a smaller this kind of development area, so then that area actually gets some value to it. So that is an interesting way to look at. So I believe that is it. So if you have any. Thank you. Yeah, sure, yeah. Do you have any others? Mic or anything? Yeah, sure.
You were talking about the side of 200 and 400.
Right.
Is it 2 or 4 actually?
No. See, 400 is for the redevelopment area.
I understand.
So,
how could it be 400? If you are all over the places like 5, 6.
okay. No, that is. In Delhi, that is actually. It's basically. That is the terminology what WBA master plan they use. They use basically like they make it like 100. Yeah. Actually, it is 2 or 4, whatever you were saying. Yeah. So they get confused. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. in marathon, possibly Salon would go up to 15. I think it goes to 15, I believe, Salon in marathon, but otherwise, 200 no never. Your excellent work, Sumit, reminds me of my friend Heriot-Watt, who used to work for DBA. Yeah. That was the time when DBA had to have excellent area planners at their own department. Now they have to offset because they don't have, like everything they have deteriorated. Yeah. But your work reminds me of that because it's very precision work. I only have 2 questions. But these EWS, which is situated mostly at the periphery areas, could be utilized. Think about the transport network. They wouldn't have to say, go there, new place of stay, but they will often with the network of communication and transport to the place of work. When we plan the habitation, we always think of the migration as well, quick migration. So that way this could be solved by not abandoning those flats, but because the 3 BHK and in city cities, they depend on the urban floor. Right. They depend upon the urban floor. And the transport system is still taking a change, which is also a job of the planner. I think they wouldn't have abandoned the flat and the project would be as successful as it shows. One question, what you are saying, now while all these flats are now standing over there, now they have initiated the metro line over there. After a decade. So I am correct. Last question is that in the 3 BHK, I find that it is very crowded. Can you put it on the screen? 3 BHK are higher areas. 3 BHK. But 3 BHK plan? I don't think I have any plan. Oh, I have this one. Okay. And this looks very crowded to me because the children who are growing up, they seem to have enough areas to see and play on.
Yeah.
It could have been avoided by creating the open space by little numbers. That's what the next generation. That's it. Otherwise, it is perfectly alright, and that it reminds me of this is one area that my eyes got. Excuse me for the age because I was being brought up as a planner. We used to have a little more oxygen to play on. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the LIG, they're all prefab. The LIG project is prefab. Yeah, that's a prefab. So, back. Right. These are the prefab. That's what I was telling you, that to create the model over here, so that's how I have to do only this, so that it can be, used everywhere. Yeah. For the 3 BHK houses. For 3 BHK. Oh. Let's come back. Yes.
Don't highlight building. If you try any prefab.
This is entirely on prefab. This project is entirely on prefab.
Are they 4 BHK project?
3 BHK, yeah.
Did you try prefab?
Yeah, it's a prefab. This building is prefab building. What you are saying over there?
So the next question should be,
Yeah.
since it's a RCC,
RCC, yeah.
what kind of technology do you use for fixing of the
Fixing of the elements. Well, see, this is actually, I don't know what exactly you are asking. See, this is what we have done over here. Seismic. Oh, yeah. The seismic consideration is there. Already we had done, we had got that thing, already vetted by IIT also. So, because this particular system what we have done, the joints are not dry joint. They are wet joint. The compression steel, they actually go inside. That is actually at the in situ. A slab has got 2 levels, where all the tension reinforcements they are done in the yard, where the precast. The compression steel, that actually put on the moment it is installed over there, the beam compression steel and the slab go all together over there, and then you are pouring the concrete over there. So that's a wet joint. So what your fear is, I absolutely understand what you are asking. The moment it is a dry joint, there is a problem of failure. But when it is a wet joint, that way, so then actually substantially reduces. We haven't used dry joint here, no.
Can you give us any plans of these modules?
I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not carrying some other lectures probably. No secret. Actually, I was given some kind of subject. I was trying to just play around it. Thank you. But now it's time to also look at, having said we have seen these massive housing and architectural buildings, I would please allow me to call upon Honorary Joint Secretary of IIA-WBCHAPTER, Architect Shanta Biswas, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Friends, colleagues, and passionate advocates for our planet, I stand before you today filled with immense gratitude. I want to express my deepest thanks to each and every one of you who are in attendance today and participating in the meeting. We thank architect Sumit Maity for his thought-provoking discussion and for illuminating our path into the future. You have challenged us to think differently, to push boundaries and to dream of a built environment that is not only sustainable but also beautiful, equitable and inspiring. We thank our audience and attendants without whom this event will not be possible. Your active participation have enriched the discussions and kept the energy flowing. The Indian Institute of Architects WB-CHAPTER thank you for your genuine commitment to the learning and contributing to the movement of architecture profession. We thank our sponsor, Mrs. Starbucks Solution Private Limited, for your support, without which this event would have remained a dream. To everyone who joined hands in this endeavor, from the sponsors who provided vital support to the volunteers who kept everything running smoothly, your contributions, big and small, have woven together a tapestry of the collective action. Thank you once again for being part of this incredible journey. I now request to please join the fellowship dinner at 3rd floor. Good night.